In this video, I'm going to use ZWO provided data of the Milky Way taken with the Seestar S30 Pro and process it in the PixInsight. My name is Morten and welcome back to 63 degrees north and Frosth Astrophotography. I don't own any of the Seestar products myself at the moment, but I could see the use of these as an entry-level astrophotography equipment or as a complement to your already existing astrophotography gear in those cases where you want something more portable. I also see the use for features like live stacking, but in those cases where you want to squeeze every little bit of detail out of the data, you really want to go to a more serious processing tool, and that is why I'm going to show you a workflow in PixInsight for data gathered with the Seestar. So let's get started. Welcome to PixInsight. We are taking a look and do processing of ZWO provided data taken with the Seestar S30 Pro of the Milky Way with the wide camera. And this is what I believe 33 stacked 30-second light frames, which is about 15 minutes. I will do a screen stretch and you can find the image here, and I don't have any more details than this. This data was provided by ZWO as a part of a contest that were going on between the end of January and the beginning of February. If there's still time, please check it out and enter. If you're watching this after the fact, you might enjoy getting some tips on how to process your data from the Seestar in PixInsight if you choose to do that. The first thing that I am doing to this image is to do a dynamic crop, although I can't really see that we have any stacking artifacts, but it's always nice to crop out the edges of the image here. Next step here is to do a dynamic background extraction. And for this, I'm using the SETI Astro Automated DBE. I'm going to select Replace Target Image, not to get any other images and windows that I have to take care of here. So this is the extracted background that I can stretch. And this is the final image with a screen transfer function. Before I'm doing anything else, I have to color calibrate this image. And I'm going to start by doing an image solver on this. And that means looking up into the night sky, identifying the stars, making sure that the computer knows where we are looking in the night sky here. Since this is a wide field frame image, it could take a little while, and you can see that we have a lot of stars identified here. If you're having problems identifying the stars here, you could be forced to run Blur Exterminator with the correct only first, but there weren't any problems right now, I would say. We're running through the spectrophotometric color calibration now. I'm using the average spiral galaxy and the ideal QE curve for this image. And since this is linear data, it is much quicker. If you run this in non-linear state, this little exercise will take a very long time because it will identify a lot more stars. So I would suggest, if ever possible, doing this in the linear phase as early as possible. When the color calibration has completed, you can remove and reapply the screen transfer function here. And then we can continue with the normal linear processing steps. And first of all, I'm going to run through Blur Exterminator on the image here. Then I will run through Noise Exterminator. And finally, I will run through Star Exterminator, separating the stars from the starless background. I really like to stretch these two individually to get the best result. This could be a personal preference also, but now we have the two here, and I will minimize the starless for now, and I will rename this to stars, and then I will remove the screen transfer function and open up GHS, and I will stretch these stars here, opening a preview, and I'm not setting a symmetry point now. I'm simply selecting local intensity to 15, and then I'm increasing the stretch factor until I am happy with the stars. And as you can see here, you can choose how many or how few stars you would like. You can start by selecting one of the brighter stars here and make sure that you don't have any artifacts around it. So somewhere like this would be nice. And then you will of course also not have any very bright stars in the Milky Way here, but I think that's okay. You don't need to have an overwhelming amount of stars in your Milky Way images. So maybe something like this. If you're happy with it, check one last time that you're happy with how the star is looking down here in the corner. And then you simply apply the stretch for the image there. And you can save this image as your star image. And minimize it for now. We're going to use it later. Or you could also adjust the color of this, not as manipulating colors, but you could do a little bit of saturation changes on this if you want to. So select saturation, you can drag that up a little bit, and you can also increase the vibrance a little bit if you want. And you can toggle before and after. If you're not zoomed in, you won't see that result so much, but it will be there, I promise you. So save that and drag the stars to the side. We will continue with the actual Milky Way here, removing the screen transfer function, opening up Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch for now. We are going to set a symmetry point here that is on the peak or slightly left of the peak. We're going to drag our local intensity to around 0.3, 0.4. And then I'm going to open up a preview, and I'm going to select a stretch factor here that produces a nice smooth little curve. The curve is the most important here. Don't start to stretch until you see things with the first curve. So select a curve like this. Then you can apply this stretch in iterations until you start to see information here. Making sure that you select highlighted areas and making sure that you are not overstretching them. Don't be afraid to stretch a little bit here. Now you can see that we're starting to come close to that. We are at 0.7276. 0.8, that's fine. We are going to reset the tool and select linear transformation type, and then we are adjusting the black point here. So one time, and you can do that again. Select linear, just the black point, reset the tool, adjust the black point, and then you can continue stretching. Now you can select in the image if you have specific areas that you want to stretch. If you want to stretch the overall faint data, place the symmetry point here to the left of the peak. Click on Send to Symmetry Point. Enter a local intensity that is fairly low here, and the most important step here is to protect highlights. So drag this down somewhere to the middle, observing where the curves ending here. Then you can stretch the image once more and apply. And then you just iterate by resetting, changing to linear, adjusting the black point on your image there, resetting again. Now you can see we are at a risk of clipping data here, and you don't want that. So now you think, I might have overstretched a little bit. So now you can select an area that you want to bring out or preserve, like the area here, for example. Select that, send to symmetry point, set the local intensity, and now you can drag protect shadows a little bit up and protect highlights a little bit down. And then you can adjust the stretch factor here. And now you will add some contrast to the image here. Keep in mind that when you add the stars here, this will be neutralized a little bit. So don't be afraid to stretch your images, I would say, but maybe I'm not the expert. So for the purposes of this video, I think we will stay there for now. And now we can do some color adjustments. So starting with a normal curves transformation and a preview window, I'm going to select saturation here, and I'm going to increase saturation and vibrance in this image. Quite a lot. Don't be afraid to add some colors. You can go back and forth here to inspect the changes that you have made. You can apply that. And now we can specifically manipulate certain colors with masks. So for that, I'm using color mask or color mask mod script, which is a really good one. If we want to add more blue to the blue areas, but not only select the blue, but also cyan, we can click on blue here to start with, but now we can adjust here, going way down all the way to cyan, and also a little bit up to magenta if we want to take a little bit of those colors. Click on lightness mask if that is not clicked on, and you can see that we have a nice color mask. Removing this out here, I don't want to affect this. And for that, I'm using the clone stamp with a large radius, 250, with softness and in opacity. And I'm simply removing this. I don't want to have any blue whatsoever adjusted on this outer piece of the image. Something like that. Then I can add my mask again. And now we go back to curves transformation one more time, and opening up a preview. Now we can add some blue in here without the fear of overblowing it or making it look crazy. We can also add some saturation to that blue and some extra vibrance maybe to that blue area. Remember that this is a little bit of a quick and dirty processing. Even though I'm showing you the steps now, you might want to make this process a much more fine-tuned one, so to speak. Let's see if we have some red that we can manipulate as well. Then I will select red and I will increase the area of red, bringing me to this, and I will add this mask to the image here. Curves again, preview, red color. And then I will increase the red here. And you don't have to be that careful here because there's not as much red as there is blue everywhere. Something like that. I'm happy for now with that. I'm going to remove these icons. You might want to save them if you're doing this, but remember, if you have manipulated your image, it is wise to do new masks for each step. Otherwise, you could be manipulating areas that you don't want manipulated at all. We're going to do some sharpening. For that, I'm going to use multi-scale linear transformation tool, but I don't want to simply add this sharpening to the image. I want to dampen the effect a little bit. So I'm using a luminance mask. And this mask I'm going to adjust a little bit with the histogram transformation tool. Going to take the middle lever here and I'm going to drag it just slightly to the right. This will decrease the intensity and I can apply that as a mask on my image. And then I will run my multi-scale linear transformation. And that will add sharpening, but not with the full effect. I'm removing the mask now, and I'm going to run through Norm Noise Exterminator one more time on this image. Sometimes it's not needed. Could be useful for the areas with the dark information here. When that is completed, we are going to add some contrast to this image and some extra sharpening, and I usually do this by adding a synthetic luminance layer that has been processed for sharpening and contrast. If you're using a monochrome image, you could go with the hydrogen alpha as your synthetic luminance, but it's fine to extract luminance out of the picture and then process that. And I normally use a range mask to select what I want to get sharpened, and I don't want to have areas that are considered background, and I don't want to have areas considered that are highlights. So I just want to affect these areas. That's why I'm using a range selection tool here to create a mask, as you can see, and I will apply this mask onto my synthetic luminance. And I will also name it Loom, and you will see why in a little bit here. Disable show mask, and we are going to run through local histogram equalization. I have 3 predefined here, and the difference between them are some more aggressive kernel radius settings affecting smaller and bigger objects in the image. So we're starting off with this one. Moving on with my next with some higher settings, and finishing off with this one with the highest settings. And you could see for each we are increasing the contrast and sharpness of the image here. So when that's done, I will remove that mask, and then I will run through a multiscale linear transformation again, but on the synthetic luminance layer here with 4 layers, but not so aggressive parameters. You don't want to over sharpen this. Remember to remove the mask before you do it. Now I want to put this back on top of my RGB image to add the effects of the contrast and sharpening. And for that I'm using LRGB combination, and I'm taking my loom here. You can see that in my saved processing icon I specified loom as the name of the luminance, and that means it will take this loom and apply it to the target wherever I apply this to. So I will grab my triangle here, drag it over to the color image, and then add my synthetic luminance to it. And we can switch here before and after. You can see that we really add some nice contrast and sharpening effects on the Milky Way here. I'm going to rename this Starless, and I'm going to save it as Starless. And I'm going to select EXIF file here. Before joining the stars and the starless, I'm going to run some extra curves transformation. I'm selecting RGB now, and I'm going to give it a slight S-curve, just to boost it a little bit more. Then we are taking the stars and the starless and the old trusted pixel math, joining these two together, and then we can inspect the final result. Just going to name it Milky and save it. So I'll have it here. Then we can look at the final result here of the Milky Way 15 minutes of Seestar S30 Pro data provided by ZWO, processed by me here in PixInsight in a very simple and quick workflow that I think works fine for this data without spending hours and hours on the processing, still achieving a very a very nice result on this data. If you made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're not already doing so. Until the next video, I wish you have clear skies.